It might come as a shock to you to learn that there are currently 2 wars being fought in Europe. You know, of course, about the pitched battle between Ukraine and Russia, with relentless artillery shelling, swarms of drones flying over the battlefield, and F-16s or Mirage 2000s patrolling the skies. But there's another type of war happening at the same time. This one is being fought in the shadows, and it also involves Ukraine and Russia. In the second war, ordinary people have become extraordinary saboteurs. They are Ukraine's resistance, and they're breaking Russia's front line from within. So let's find out more about this shadow war and how Ukraine is going deep undercover to break Russia's front lines. Now, this isn't just a small cell of volunteers trying to push Ukraine to victory in minuscule increments. It's actually a deep cover resistance network with a sprawling web of partisans, undercover operatives, and even double agents. Those involved all have a singular goal: conduct extremely effective behind-the-lines sabotage so Russia can't start and sustain an invasion. This isn't the first time deep cover operations and resistance cells have been involved in this war. On October 11, 2025, Ukrainian partisans who had infiltrated the Russian military prevented a planned offensive near Vovchansk in the Kharkiv region. The agents embedded themselves into Russia's 82nd Motor Rifle Regiment and lived among Russian soldiers, becoming a regular part of the ranks. Once inside, they contacted Ukrainian intelligence and provided precise coordinates of Russian artillery positions, armored vehicles, and troop concentrations surrounding the regiment and its adjacent units. This allowed Ukraine's defense forces to launch preemptive strikes that stopped the planned Russian assault before it could even begin. This particular operation was conducted by a group known as Atesh, an anti-Russian resistance cell group. Typically, Atesh, whose name means fire in Crimean Tatar, is made up of and recruits Ukrainians, non-Russian and Russian ethnic minorities, such as the aforementioned Crimean Tatars, in occupied territories. The actual movement started practically with the invasion itself, and by 2025, its members had managed to slowly infiltrate every part of the Russian army. However, Atesh itself is a relatively loose conglomeration of Ukrainian nationalists who want to be a part of a resistance movement. The true initiator of most of the underground operations in Ukraine is the Ukrainian military intelligence itself. This is detailed in a notable interview of Sasha from Ukraine's Special Operations Forces, or SSO, with the Ukrainian outlet Hromadske. In the interview, Sasha revealed that SSO has been quietly identifying and vetting people who are located in prime areas that can support resistance cells, namely Russian-occupied territories or those that are about to become occupied by invading forces. The profile of a typical infiltrator is someone who is patriotic and genuinely willing to carry out resistant movement tasks, but they don't enter into the operation with just good intentions and little else. The training process itself is fascinatingly comprehensive. Selected candidates undergo both remote and in-person training in secure locations outside Russian-occupied territories. The SSO teaches operatives to assess risks, blend in with others, and avoid drawing attention. For each agent, the military develops an individual behavioral plan, sometimes requiring them to join authorities, work in local administration, or even run pro-Russian websites as cover for their real activities. The operational security is airtight. Nobody, including the agent's family, is supposed to know about their activities, unless 2 relatives are both working for the SSO together. Should they be discovered, Ukraine has developed evacuation plans for each new operative. Or should an agent lose their nerve or encounter imminent threats, they're immediately evacuated alongside their families. The range of missions involved here is staggering. Unlike Atesh's movements, these people work on the civilian side of the Russian invasion. They're typically directed to tamper with local administration to slowly seed discontent and dissatisfaction with the occupational authorities who are working to abruptly integrate Ukraine into Russia proper. But even these civilian missions can involve violent ways to reduce Russia's influence in occupied regions. Their efforts can also include directly destroying military supplies or assassinating soldiers. It's because of these types of missions that the SSO primarily works with extremely stable and dedicated individuals who understand the pressure they'll be under and the ramifications of their actions. And it's working beyond anyone's expectations. The scope and reach of these operations has expanded from simple recon to extensive sabotage, and even widespread tactical strikes hundreds of miles away from the actual front line. For that, the SSO and Atesh are using a slightly different tactic. If we go back to the October 11 incursion, there's another important part of the social media announcement. Even among the elite units of the enemy army, there are those willing to help Ukraine for a fair reward. This implies Ukrainian intelligence and undercover groups can use Russian troops, more specifically Russian ethnic minorities, or even conscripted Ukrainians. Simply put, the support for Ukraine is so widespread that it seeped into the Russian military itself, and if the opposition is paying enough, they're willing to become a part of the operation. According to Zokar, a 20-year-old Atesh coordinator, the movement has agents not only throughout occupied Ukraine, but also in cities and regions across Russia, with recruitment posters appearing on telegraph poles as far as Siberia. The movement has successfully infiltrated Russian defense industry plants and military units, providing detailed intelligence that enables precision Ukrainian strikes. And the sheer number of notable incidents involving Ukrainian resistance cells is overwhelming. In late November 2023, Ukrainian saboteurs managed to place explosives on a Russian freight train carrying diesel and jet fuel roughly 3,000 miles from the Ukrainian border, timing the blast to occur inside the 9-mile-long Severomusky tunnel through Siberia's mountains. The target wasn't just the train, but also the tunnel itself. Unlike other overland routes, destroying a tunnel has significant ramifications. With exposed railways, new tracks can easily be put in place, and new trains can begin running through in a matter of weeks. However, this tunnel was a vital link between Russia and China, which has become one of the most important exporters of munitions and weapons to Russia to keep the aggression coming. It took decades for the tunnel to become fully operational, owing it to its being one of the longest such tunnels in the world. Destroying the tunnel itself inflicted much more damage, practically preventing Russia from using that part of the rail for months or even years until they could clear the rubble and make the tunnel stable enough for consistent traffic. Then in April 2025, a pro-Ukrainian partisan embedded within Russia's center military group conducted a sabotage operation on the Donetsk front, setting a Russian tank on fire. The agent chose a moment when Russians were installing additional armor on the tank and struck while mechanics were drinking, reducing their alertness. After destroying the tank and causing a blaze, the agent withdrew undetected to a safe location. A few months later, in June, Ukrainian agents sabotaged an electrical substation in Kaliningrad, Russia, causing $5 million in damage and cutting electricity to military production site. The agents drained coolant from the power transformer before setting the facility ablaze, significantly damaging nearby Russian military installations. And finally, in October 2025, Atesh partisans struck a railway nearly 600 miles away from Ukraine's border in Russia's Chuvaskia Republic. This is a critical supply line used to transport Shahid strike drones from the Yelabuga factory to the front line and deployment zones. That's roughly the distance from Washington, D.C. to Miami.